I am a mother of four and down-to-earth, honest person. I've always been gifted when it comes to the paranormal, whether it be dreams or just encounters. I remember when I was a child I saw an angel, but other than that, up until recently, I saw nothing. My husband and I bought a house back in 2001. We are not quite sure how old, but we knew just a month and a half before we moved in and signed the papers. The previous owner passed away, right in the house. This never bothered me, but I always wondered maybe we jumped in too quickly. We were painting one afternoon. Before we moved in, the front screen door opened and closed. I poked my head around the corner and expected to see my husband's aunt, and no one appeared. This didn't bother me. I figured Sam came back to see what we were doing. Sam is the name of the guy who owned it before us. Some people tried to brush it off as the wind, but an old wooden screen door won't open because of the wind. Anyhow, to get to my story, one late winter evening, I was painting my two sons' bedroom while my husband ran an errand. I was perched up on top of a chair painting above the doorway. While I was doing this, I was talking to a girlfriend on the phone, not paying attention to what was going on around me. I heard footsteps coming up and knew that it wasn't the dog. What I didn't expect was to see a child, a boy, maybe 4 years old, walking in front of him. I didn't exactly look right at the child, because at first, I thought it was one of my boys. Then it dawned on me that all of my children were in their playroom, playing a game. The phone got quiet, and I told my friend that I thought I'd seen the ghost of a child. I got down off my chair and proceeded to follow where the child had went, and he was no longer there. From the looks of it, he seemed to be headed to my baby's nursery, where just a mother earlier on Christmas Eve, I noticed something heading into the nursery. The nursery seems to be the focal point of our visitors. My baby girl hasn't had much luck sleeping in there, and to be honest, before the little boy incident, when I would rock my little girl to sleep in there, I always felt a little uncomfortable, like someone was watching me. Our other boy just confirmed what I felt. Now to sum up this story, I don't think I'm the only one in the family to see our visitors. My youngest son, who is 4, and also autistic, has mentioned fearlessly that he has seen a ghost during the night. He doesn't seem to be afraid in the least, but has come to sleep with us often. He just says, "I sleep with you. I see ghosts. Night night." Anyhow, I believe I passed the gifts of the sixth sense to my children. I got it from my mother, and so did my twin sister. My other son, who is 6, who is also autistic, also told me that he sees colors around people. I assume it is their aura, and has told me that he also sees different colors that float around in the air. Now, what this is, I don't know. Well, I know I've said what I had to say. I know that no one is really alone. We are surrounded by spirits of the unrest. Some are happy, and some not so happy. I know that in my house I have 2 here, and I'm not really afraid. Only a few times I've been freaked out, like when I wake up during the night, freezing cold, even though I'm under the covers, and when the lights would constantly flicker. Believe me when I say, you need to put forth the authority. Just say knock it off or stop. Usually within a short time they will stop. Anyhow, I think I've said more than enough. I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to share my encounter. There is an old house in my hometown in Oklahoma, where we used to visit. We would share some great home-cooked old-style family meals with our friends, and afterwards, we will play dominoes at the kitchen table. You'd need to know that the old house had been sitting there for many years, and that there were stories of possible buried money associated with the house. The house was one of those that sit up off the ground, on foundation pillars or rocks, and had a wooden front porch with steps leading up to it. One evening, after eating a great meal cooked by the lady of the house, 4 of us were sitting around the kitchen table playing dominoes, when someone came into the house and walked into the front bedroom that was off of the living room. I assumed that it was their son who had come into the house, and I called out hello to him. Everyone else at the table was quiet, and when I looked at my friend, he said, "That ain't Larry, that's the Haines." You see, that front bedroom was where an old man had died in his bed. That same man had stories associated with him, that someone had been killed on the property, and that maybe buried money was involved. They say the old man wore cowboy boots, and that is exactly what it sounded like that evening. Someone wearing cowboy boots, walking across the wooden porch, then the wooden floor of the front room, and going into the bedroom. A short time later, my friend had the wooden porch torn down and replaced it with a new cement porch. The Haines with the cowboy boots was never heard again. It was a cloudy June night, and my dad, his fishing buddy, and I went camping on the St. Croix River, which makes the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin. It's about 2:30 a.m., and my dad and his friend went out catfishing, while I sat by the fire and wrote a story I'd been working on. It was a normal camping trip, the occasional rustle in the bushes and fish jumping in the water, but I managed to keep my wits about me, especially for an 8-year-old, if I do say so myself. But then I heard screams for help from the river and the frantic splashing of water, so I ran to the shore and looked out over the river, but didn't see anything. Thinking it was me letting my imagination get the best of me, I went back to the fire and back to my story. At about 3:30, I started dozing off into a quiet, peaceful sleep when I heard a blood-curdling scream from the sandbar about 30 feet offshore. I ran again the shore and saw a wet woman in a large dress kneeling beside a body on the shore of the sandbar. I yelled to the woman, "Are you all right?" but got no reply. I yelled again, "Are you all right?" but again no reply. I waded out into the water about 10 feet when I heard the sound of my dad's boat motor coming around a large corner of a cliff. When my dad saw me, he was furious. With the occasional F word, he chewed me out before I could even explain the story of the woman. I told him I had seen a crying woman on the sandbar. He pulled up beside me, and I managed to pull myself onto the boat. We drove over to the sandbar and began looking for any trace of anything or anyone, but there was nothing, not even a depression of a footprint or a piece of cloth. Since then, I haven't done any research into drownings on the St. Croix, because there are a lot, because of cliff jumpers and them hitting rocks and drowning. No one has believed me except my friend, who showed me the sights. My dad said I was tired, and his friend laughed at me. I know this might sound creepy, or you think I'm joking, but really I'm not. I was about 11 or 12 when this happened. Before me and my mother moved to Vermont, we lived in a house in New York. The first night we stayed there, I slept in my own room. It was good and all. Then I started to doze off. I was half awake and half asleep. All of a sudden, I heard horrible screams coming from our attic. And our attic was a very large attic. My brother's room was up there, but he did not sleep in there. Anyways, when I heard these horrible screams, I didn't think of anything else to do, so I screamed back as loud as possible. My mother came running up our stairs, and I was still screaming by the time she got into my room. She was sleeping downstairs because her room wasn't finished painting, so I asked my mother to sleep upstairs with me. In the middle of the night, I had to go to the bathroom, and so I asked my mom to stand by the bathroom door. I did what I had to do and got out fast. I asked my mom if we could keep the bathroom light on, and I did. So me and her hopped back into bed, and I was dozing off again. Then more screaming happened. I didn't know what to do again, so I took my pillow and put it over my head. My mom asked me what was wrong, and I told her I was hearing more screaming. The weird thing about it was, she didn't hear anything. I'm not a hypochondriac or anything, and I wasn't telling myself to hear these screams. The next day, I told my family about what had happened, and our house was connected to the next door neighbors, and my mom asked them if they heard any screaming, and they said no. We asked the other next door neighbors if they heard any screaming, and they also said no. Now, this only happened once to me, and I moved into a lot of houses and nothing like this ever happened to me. If you could, please take the time to read this and help me out, because it's been over 2 years and I still wonder about the screaming. I've lived in my current residence for over 30 years, and I can say with certainty that I've experienced some strange things. A year or two after we moved in, it was 1973 or 74. For a while I heard a strange sound at night, as if gravel was being poured down our rain gutter spout. I heard this on a number of evenings when I was alone in my bedroom, and my parents and sister were in another part of the home. Once I went outside to investigate and found absolutely nothing, and after the sound had faded away. Another time we had an old cat who had died. She was the only cat we had had at the time. A month or two after her death, my sister and I and our poodle were startled to hear what sounded like an angry meow from directly underneath the cot where my sister and the dog were laying. The dog pricked up his ears at the sound. I dropped to my knees and looked under the cot. Nothing. Still another time, my dad commented about something weird. He caught the odor of lilac flying around the house. The smell gradually faded, but it wasn't until years later that I found a tiny perfume bottle belonging to my late grandmother, the fragrance of which was lilac. After my parents' death and my sister moved away, I still continued experiencing some strange things. Before I say what they were, I want to say that these things did not happen consistently. A thing would occur, and then there would be a span of time before anything would happen. Once in 1995, I believe, I was sitting in the den when a large glass wall plate hanging on the wall, this wall plate belonged to my parents, suddenly started rattling by itself. I jumped to my feet and said, "Cut that out," and it did, almost immediately. I promptly took it off the wall and placed it in the C set, where it's been ever since. A few years later, what I could swear was a disembodied, unintelligible, creaky-sounding voice made its presence known. This went on periodically for about a month. Once I tried to banter with it, and it responded. Then came some more weird stuff. By that time, I was occupying my mother's old bedroom. In February 1999, while I was laying on the bed resting one afternoon, I happened to be looking at the full-length mirror attached to my closet door. All of a sudden, I saw the brown, transparent shadow of my cat in the mirror, running at a fast trot. The very next afternoon, the cat entered the room in exactly the same manner, and with the exact same body language. One evening in 1999, I was again in my bedroom, with my cat lying at the foot of the bed. As I gazed at the ceiling, I was startled to see a golden, glowing, transparent ball. I now believe this to be a spirit orb, suddenly appear out of nowhere, and then vanish 2 seconds later, in a little upward spiral. The latest incident took place in my bedroom on June 7, 2004, just before 9 in the evening. By now my cat had a companion cat. As the three of us were suddenly lying in bed, my older cat suddenly started looking around, and then up and down, his eyes intently following something I couldn't see, but he could. He wasn't the slightest bit frightened. In fact, he casually snapped at the darn thing. Invisible Irv, my nickname for our unforeseen guest, then apparently floated over to the second cat. This cat too calmly started looking around him intently, and then gazed straight up at the ceiling. "Just what the heck are you looking at?" I thought somewhat nervously as my gaze followed the cat's. After a few moments, our unseen guest disappeared, and the cat went back to his normal behavior. I think I'm being haunted by the ghost of a baby bird. Yeah, lame, you might think, but it's creeping me out. About 2 days ago, my dad woke me up by holding a cheeping baby bird in his hands. Some other birds had attacked its nest. My dad and I guessed that the little bird was about a day or two old. It had 1 or 2 feathers coming in on its wings. Couldn't really stand. And the most startling thing about it was that this small baby bird that could fit in the palm of your hand made a big cheep. Constantly it would cheep for food. I fell in love with it instantly. For 2 days I went out and dug up worms and cut them up and fed it with tweezers. I even made it cheep to pretend to be its mommy. But around noon today, all the bird wanted to do was sleep. So I let it be, thinking it was full and needed to rest. I was playing on the computer, and it was in a Ziploc container. And I noticed that it was in a strange position, and it hadn't woken up to eat in a while. Worried, I woke the bird and held a bit of worm to its mouth, trying to make it eat, even cheeping like it. It just didn't want it, and so I left it alone and went back to sleep. About 45 minutes later, I had to go out with my stepmom and stepsister, and I tried feeding it again and still it wouldn't eat. I let it be again. When I came back, I found the bird on its back, softly chirping, eyes open, but not really focused. I knew what was happening, and as I was standing above it, trying to chirp it back from death, I sat above it crying and chirping, watching it struggle for its last breaths. Finally, it stretched its wings and laid still, and I burst out in more tears. I felt a real connection to the bird, and I still remember the smell of its container and the way it used to chirp for food. One of my stepsisters and I held a funeral out back and buried it. The strange thing is that I think the ghost of it is back, because I hear the exact same chirping that I was hearing last night at this time. I know it's not my imagination, because I had short chirps to get your attention, and longer ones when it wanted to eat. I've mostly been hearing the short ones, but I've been hearing some long ones lately, and I'm too scared to go up and open the door to get out of the room. It's seriously freaking me out. My stepsisters have a parakeet, but I doubt that it's because it's outside and I'm not. There's one other possibility. The second hand on the clock here. Sometimes I hear the chirp, and I'm trying to listen, but all I hear is the chick chick of the second hand, which sounds relatively similar. I just heard it again. It's currently 3 in the morning, and I plan on staying up until daylight breaks, because there's something about that creeps me out. There it goes again. Another incident that happened. There's a closet in the computer room here that I feel uneasy about. I always feel like something is watching me from it, but I don't have any proof, just a strong gut feeling. Next to the door is a closet is a window. I was pulling down the blinds because it was dark out, and the door was shut. I started reading some of the stories here, and about a half hour later, I look at the reflection of the door in the screen, and it's open about halfway. It creeped the bejesus out of me. I shut it, and made sure that it couldn't open again, and sat back down. About an hour later, I left the room, and when I came back, it was open again. My stepmom had been sleeping the whole time. My stepsisters weren't home, and my dad and brother were outside and hadn't come in. It was open to how it was before, when I made sure it was shut, and couldn't on its own. I propped a paper shredder against the door, and it's been okay since. Lately, I've been hearing tapping from inside it though. An incident a long time ago. I was home all alone talking to my boyfriend on the phone. My mom was picking up my brother from Boy Scouts. I was in our room, and the door to the hall was shut. All of a sudden, I got this really scared feeling, like something of pure evil was behind the door, wanting and waiting for me. I got so scared I started crying, and shaking, and I told my boyfriend, who lived right up the street, to come over. When he did, I opened the window to talk to him, but I wouldn't leave the room to let him in. The thing was still there, and no way was I going to go in the hall with it there. I was lucky though, because right when my mom came home, and it went away as she walked up the stairs. I've never felt that scared in my life about anything, but this I was terrified of. It hasn't happened since, thank God. I live in Cincinnati. My room is in a basement. It isn't a typical wet, damp, and cold basement, although it is dark, especially at night. I don't know whether I would go as far as saying my room is badly haunted, but I had presences felt, as well as incidents before, some similar to ones I've read about on the site, where my electrical appliances will go haywire. Sometimes it can just be related to the fuses and whatnot, but I've had cases where my stereo will go on by itself at around 2 or 1 in the morning, and the tuner will scan. It usually will stop on either oldie station or talk radio stations. Also, as the building is old but new enough to have fuses that can be reset, rather than fuses needing to be replaced, there's a tendency for their fuses to reset. However, on occasions, lights in my room circulated through a fuse that is out will go on and off before the fuse is reset. Usually smaller lights like small lamps and plug-it lights. What makes the entire situation odd is a presence a lot of people get in my room. A lot of my friends say they feel like they're being followed by someone in my room. And sometimes when I go and bend down, I expect for this scene to be like those on movies, where someone who wasn't there before is where when you stand back up. Usually whatever spirit or ghost that is on my floor gives more of a vibe or presence. I've had pictures come back with things that look like orbs or swirls. As of yet, I haven't seen any manifestations or apparitions. The closest thing to one may be things in pictures. Hey Phantoms, so thank you for listening to this video. I have something very special at the end of this video that I want you to stick around for, and it's to celebrate 9 years on the channel. Yes, today marks 9 years ago that I started this channel up, or my first video ever on this day. So enjoy this next little music video to end the video.
No one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
I'm done being your stupid mascot. I'm sick of you making fun of me all the time. It's gotten to the point where I can't even hear myself think anymore. Inflation is at an all-time high. Views are so low. I mean, what am I supposed to do at this point, Phantom? Doritos are $6 and they took away my favorite flavor, sour ketchup. Now, I know what you're going to say. Jim, I helped you with the campaign. You protected me against the plague and wiped my ass with toilet paper when nobody else would. Introduced me to the Walrus Club and helped me get OJ out of jail. But I'm sick and tired of being the laughingstock of the channel. Consider this friendship over. I'm going to the White House right now and telling them I'm faking my death and leaving town. Maybe they'll give me witness protection or some shit. I don't know, but this is the end. No more gymnasium. New name is Paul, the pianist, and I'll be the best damn pianist you'll ever know, and you'll be sorry. I'll never have to think about parading around like a little loser, trying to entertain a bunch of Phantoms fans, just to be the punchline of every joke. This is it, Phantom. Go back to Europe or something. It's time for me to escape into my melodramatic life. I bid you adieu, not Mountain Dew, but a different kind of dew. The dew that never returns. Now play my song.
You remember when I ran for president? Remember when I drank that cyanide? Used to be the channel man, making critics laugh. Well, that was just a phase. Our Phantoms knew were crazy. I miss the days when I just stopped and sing praise of Jim's facts. I love living those psycho days, doing douchey things, trolling people's way. I just wanna be that guy, caught iron by the side, live way to make it. I'm a douchebag with a soul, a douchebag with the role. Leave it to me now, I know what you will say. Jim, 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 that's my name. mascot. I used to prep it up, a douchebag haircut. Phantomofdarkness told me so. I wanted to read ghost stories, capture the glory of a YouTube channel, man. But when I disappeared like a phantom in the night, everyone stops, I'll be scrolling through comments, being phantoms, pets. I asked, why can't I narrate? I wanted to be the reader of scary stories, not be a mockery of the channel. So I'm a douchebag with the soul, a douchebag with the mold. Leave it to me now, I know what you will say. Jim, that's my name. John sitting around. Hey, remember when I used to be the mascot? I used to prep it up, a douchebag haircut. Phantomofdarkness told me so. John sitting around. Look, I know I'm supposed to keep quiet, entertain you and be right, but I'm Gymnasium Jones. What you think about that, bros? So I'ma sit right here, leave you with the verse. I couldn't be that terse, but if you think I'm such a curse, I relax today like I'm chasing ghosts. So I'ma sit right here, leave you with the verse. I couldn't be that terse, but if you think I'm such a curse, I relapse today like I'm chasing ghosts. So